What's going on, traders? It's Mike from CapitalHillFX, and in this video, we're going to be recapping all the different trades that I took this past week with my premium members, and then we're going to dip into the weekly market analysis, going over pairs that could potentially play out for this upcoming trading week. Now, first things first, we're 7 weeks into the trading year of 2023, and this was the first not profitable week, meaning we had a down week. We were down for around 2.5%, and here at CapitalHillFX, we're all about transparency and real results. So I would never lie telling you that I'm profitable this past week when I have not been. In your trading journey, you're going to have down weeks. So it's very important that you're watching YouTube videos of people who are recapping down weeks like this. The only L that we're taking in the markets are lessons. It's never a loss. So we're going to make sure to dive into these trading setups and see what we could have learned from all of these setups. So without further ado, let's jump into the first trading setup, which is CAD-JPY, and it was just a break and retest of a significant horizontal level. We could see we treated this level as support previously, and now it looks like we were coming back into this zone and potentially testing as resistance. Just a typical break and retest on the daily time frame. Now we're scoping down to the execution time frame, which is the hourly time frame, and we can see that we had an initial push into this zone. We had a very small bearish bounce off of the zone. Then we could see when we came back to test the zone yet again, testing these previous highs, we left a very strong bearish wick on the hourly time frame. And remember, when we're trying to trade bounces off of daily resistance levels, we want to see bearish candle closures and bearish wicks on the hourly time frame, because that's giving us a better idea that there's a lot of selling sensitivity around the horizontal level. So after we presented this strong bearish wick on the hourly time frame, I decided to place a sell with my hedge order right above the zone and my take profit, I believe, targeting this structural low. And I usually don't place my take profit until I see how price action is reacting around the zone, whether we have an impulse towards the downside or we're starting to consolidate. I will sort of get a better idea of where I want to place my targets once I see the price action play out. So let's actually get to the charts, because there were a lot of orders that were placed on this trade and could be very confusing if I'm just looking at screenshots. So again, starting off on the daily time frame, we could see that we were pushing into the significant horizontal level, but we could see as we've played out, price closed past this zone and it looks like we broke and retested this zone. Let's go back to the hourly time frame. So I'm going to replay really quickly so we could get a better idea again of what I was looking at the time. So we could see I placed right after this bearish wick, and we could see we began to push towards the upside, and I'm just going to play candle by candle. We could see this is when the hedge order actually got triggered. So we were in a buy and a sell at the same exact time. I wasn't sure exactly where price was going, so that's why it's very important to be triggered into a buy and a sell, just because you're not losing any more money in the actual trade management. So getting a better idea of where price is going to go, we went back towards the downside. Not really sure if we're going to treat it as support or resistance, so I was just waiting for a breakout in either direction, and we could see we finally had that breakout towards the upside. And we could see we're also creating higher lows and higher highs in the process of it, right? So now we're sort of waiting for that break and retest. I was waiting for price to come back to the significant horizontal level and push back towards the upside, where I could actually exit this sell at a smaller loss, and then I could place another buy potentially in profit on that upside move. So waiting for price to come back to that significant horizontal level, and we can see we're slowly but surely coming back to the zone, and this is when price actually came back to the zone. I was waiting for that bullish price action, and we can see here we're beginning to form some type of bullish candle closures. We formed a nice, here we go, beautiful bullish candle closure. And this is where I ended up entering, and we could see this is where we ended up pushing towards the upside. I ended up closing my sell order a little bit late, so it ended up being 1% loss, I believe, on the initial sell order. Yes, the initial sell order was at 1% loss, but we could see a little bit deeper. Now I have, I ended up placing another buy order. So I had this initial buy hedge, and then I placed another buy order. So I was net 2 positions long on CAD-JPY. And then when I woke up the next morning, because I placed that at night, I believe, we ended up pushing back towards the downside, and we were forming a bunch of bearish wicks before wiping out this previous high. So we tried to wipe out this previous high, and we could see that price didn't even meet this previous high before forming a bunch of bearish wicks and bearish candle closures. We could see where the position of the real body is closing near the bottom of the candle. Just super clear price action, convincing that price was going to go back towards the downside. So I ended up closing around break even for both of my buy positions. I think it was at a very, very small loss. So yeah, 0.1 on this one and 0.12 on this one. So very small losses with the buy hedges. The sell was the main loser on CAD-JPY. So I ended up, I think, being 1.23% loss on CAD-JPY, which is very unfortunate. And again, when you're using hedge orders, you're going to place that much more risk if you're placing more positions, just because you just don't have that initial stop out, right? So you're placing more positions. So there is more inherent risk to it. But if any of these positions did end up going towards the upside, instead of losing that percent, we would have gotten like 2-3%. But we didn't end up going towards the upside. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. So we ended up losing on CAD JPY. Just looking forward right off the bat, maybe I shouldn't have actually entered after this initial test of the zone. Like maybe I should have waited for more candle closures. I think it's better off that I wait for bearish candle closures rather than bearish wicks, because even though we did have the test of the previous highs and we closed near the bottom of the candle, it would be more convincing if we had a nice bearish impulsive candle off of the zone before actually entering a sell. So for the next time, I'm probably not going to be entering off of bearish wicks. I'm going to be entering off of bearish candle closures. So that's very good to know for the next time. And also, going back to this trading setup, we had a bunch of different JPY quote pairs that were playing out for sells. If you remember, I placed a bunch of JPY quote pairs in the trading setups, and I believe I made a YouTube video going over all the JPY quote pairs that I was looking at. It was AUD JPY, GBP JPY, a bunch of other JPY quote pairs, and those JPY quote pairs, they were just bounces off of resistance levels. They were not break and retest. So I think looking back at that, and I even put this in my trading journal, I believe, I said, make sure to trade the bounce off resistance and support level over the break and retest. So make sure to look at the bounce off of daily levels rather than looking at break and retest. So this break and retest didn't end up working out, but it's okay because we didn't lose that much of our capital. Next, the next position was Euro NZD. It was a sell on Euro NZD. So let's take a look at that. So we can see on the daily time frame on Euro NZD, we have a super clear daily horizontal level. We'll probably be able to see this better on the charts. And again, don't get too overwhelmed when you see all the lines and positions and stuff like that. I'll be able to clarify it all. So we can see on the daily time frame, we had a super clear daily horizontal level that was treated as support and resistance in the past. So I was just waiting for price to come into the zone and treat it as resistance. That's really it. We're going to go down to the hourly time frame and see what triggered the entry. So we can see that we did have price push into the zone, and then we had another candle try and wipe out the previous highs. But what were we left with? A bearish wick and a bearish candle closure, right? We sort of closed near the bottom of the candle, not totally towards the bottom of the candle, more near the middle of the candle than the bottom of the candle. And I guess that's a lesson right off the bat that we would like a better candle. But if you already see, we had a push towards the downside, and then we tested the previous high sort of shallowly, and we could see we had another bearish candle closure that actually closed near the bottom of the candle. So if I didn't even enter on this one, I probably would have entered on this candle. So it wasn't the price action that was a lesson here. I think it was more of the market structure that was the lesson here. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is we could see that we actually pushed towards the downside, and then we came to test the zone yet again, and this will happen multiple times, right? Where price will actually come back to the zone, test to see if we could wipe out these previous highs, and then we'll go back towards the downside. But instead of going towards the downside, what ended up happening? We put in a higher low, price came and tested the zone again. We put in another higher low, price came and tested the level again, and then we ended up wiping out. I should have exited the sell once I saw price was creating these higher highs and higher lows. We weren't even putting in higher highs exactly, but we definitely were putting in higher lows. So I definitely should have exited this sell around break even when I saw price was creating this uptrend structure, but I didn't end up doing it. We could see we activated this hedge order, and then I ended up closing all the positions once price actually came back to the zone, just because we were in a loss on CAD JPY and it was Friday evening. So I just wanted to close out of all the positions. I didn't want to hang on to loss over the weekend. So I just ended up closing out all the positions right here at, I believe, a 1% loss, a little bit over a 1% loss, I believe it was. So Euro NZD was a 0.03% loss, which is pretty much nothing. And then the initial sell order was 1%. So not much loss, a little under 2.5% of loss for the week. But that's completely okay because I think we're up a little over like 12% for the year. So completely fine. Like I said, losing weeks are normal for traders. If you have a trader that's telling you they win every single week, they're probably not a reputable trader, right? You want to make sure that you have your traders that actually have down weeks or have losing trades, because that shows you that they're actually a real trader. So now we're going to get into the analysis. Let's look at TradingView and let's take a look at some other potential setups that could play out. So starting off on CHF JPY, looking at the daily time frame, we can see we are around a significant daily horizontal level where price has reacted with in the past. Support, Support hasn't really been reacted as resistance. I mean, we had this small little bounce last week, but we can see we're actually coming back to test the zone yet again. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what price action plays out around this significant horizontal level. Like I said, when we scope down to the hourly time frame, we could see we've already formed some type of bearish price action, and we could see we already have some significant highs on the hourly time frame. It will be very interesting to see the price action that plays out once price interacts with these previous highs. If we form a lot of bearish price action on the hourly time frame, I think it will be very interesting for potential sells towards the downside. But when we go down to the 4-hour time frame, we could see we sort of are creating higher highs and higher lows, but I still think that this daily zone could be significant enough to bring price back towards the downside. So I will be waiting for price to interact with this zone and then look for potential downside movement. And I think I already called this in the free trading setups with my free community. So I would definitely look out for CHF JPY towards the downside. Let's switch to USD JPY. We could see on the daily time frame, just another super clear daily horizontal level that price has interacted with in the past, has treated as support and resistance previously. We could see in the beginning of January, we did interact with this zone as resistance, just waiting to see if price could interact with this zone yet again as resistance. And when we look at this daily candle right here, beautiful bearish wick on this daily candle. We could see we tried to wipe out this zone. We failed to close past the zone, and we ended up closing near the bottom of the candle. That's giving us a very good idea that we could potentially head back towards the downside. Scoping down to the hourly time frame, a lot of people may call this a liquidity spike, a broker's barge, stop hunt, whatever it is. We can see we had a lot of sellers probably around this significant horizontal level. What ended up happening? Price drove towards the upside. Now we're back towards the downside. We could potentially test it as support or resistance. I have a hunch that we could potentially test this as resistance. I'll be waiting for price to come back and test this zone and then potentially go back towards the downside. Maybe these previous highs up in here. Just waiting to see if we could test this as potential resistance before looking for downside movement. Euro GBP, looking on the daily time frame. We can see we have a break and retest of this significant horizontal level. Early in the week, I was looking for price to bounce off of this significant horizontal level, but we ended up wiping out the zone. Now it looks like we could potentially test as resistance. I will look for potential upside movement on Euro GBP, considering we just have broken and now we're retesting this zone. Let's go down to the hourly time frame and see if we could spot some nice price action that will trigger an entry. So we can see we did have a beautiful bullish wick on the hourly time frame to close out the trading week, but it looks like price just didn't have enough buyers to actually send price back towards the upside. I think it will be very interesting to see how the price action plays out when we open up the trading week in a couple hours. So I'm going to be waiting to see how the candles form around this significant horizontal level on the hourly time frame before placing any buys on Euro GBP. But again, waiting for that bullish price action to play out right around this zone that we're forming right now. Waiting to see how the candles form out on the hourly time frame before placing any buys on Euro GBP. Let's switch to AUD USD. We can see we formed a beautiful bullish wick around this significant daily horizontal level. The only reason I'm a little bit skeptical around this zone is because we've already bounced at this zone and we failed to wipe out the previous highs, and it looks like we formed a lot of bearish wicks, and now it looks like we're coming back to this zone yet again. Let's go down to the hourly time frame and see how price is sort of forming around this zone. On the hourly time frame, in my subjective opinion, it looks like we're creating lower highs and lower lows. I mean, you could potentially look for a test of this zone before looking for upside movement, just because sort of what we just had on USD JPY, where price wipes through the zone, then comes back and tests what it originally was testing as. We could see this is exactly what happened on AUD USD. We tried to test the zone, failed, wiped through the zone, come back, and it looks like we could come and test the zone as potential support. I'm not going to look for potential support as here. It could potentially test here support. I'm not going to look for buys here just because it looks a little shady in my subjective opinion. But for all you risk takers out there, definitely look for buys on AUD USD. Switching to NZD Canadian dollar, I'm waiting for price to dig a little bit deeper into this zone. When we go back to the weekly, this looks like a weekly zone. It looks like price has interacted with this zone in the past as support and resistance. Then we go down to the daily time frame. I'm just waiting for price to dig a little bit deeper into this zone. Again, a lot of people always ask, Mike, where do you wait for price to reject at the zone? I always say look left, right? So I just put a price point right here. It looks like this price point is pretty significant. I'll be waiting for price to push a little bit deeper into this zone before looking for potential upside movement on NZD Canadian dollar. Next, we have AUD JPY. We could see that we already bounced at this significant daily resistance level. We could see I had an alert set at this resistance level. It literally missed it by a couple pips. So frustrating, but get used to it because it's going to happen to you. And it looks like price is sort of floating through substructure right now. So I'm not looking at anything at AUD JPY. Euro JPY, looks like we we broke and retested this significant horizontal level. Remember, if we violate a significant daily zone, 9 times out of 10, we're going to come back to that zone, test it as the opposite of what we were expecting to treat it as. We were expecting to treat it as resistance, came back, tested as support, and is beginning to push. So not 9 times out of 10, by the way. That was such an arbitrary number, but a lot of times it will happen, and we'll scope down to the hourly time frame where we will see it right here. Broke through the zone, came back and tested as support. We're beginning to push towards the upside. I mean, just super clear. I'm not going to be looking for anything on Euro GBP right now. Switching to GBP JPY, it looks like we tried to test this as resistance. We failed, and it looks like we're coming back to the zone yet again to test as resistance. I'm not going to be trading another bounce off this zone. Just looks a little too sketchy for me. There's a lot of JPY quote pairs that look good for sells. It's very important to validate which one looks best or mitigate the risk upon a couple different others. NZD-JPY, nothing I'm looking for right now. Euro-USD, it looks like price is forming a beautiful daily bullish hammer around a significant horizontal level. Go down to the hourly time frame. I mean, yeah, just a super clear, beautiful daily candle around this horizontal level. It's just not a good entry right now. I would be waiting to see if price could come back to the zone and then look for potential upside movement. So just waiting for a retracement back. Even though we are creating lower highs and lower lows, if we go down to the hourly time frame, this just looks like we're in a super clear uptrend on the daily time frame. And I think this is a very nice daily level for the time being. And this candle is just beautiful for me. So moving this a little bit higher in the queue, waiting for a bounce off of that daily horizontal level on Euro USD, just waiting for price to retrace back to the zone a little bit deeper. Then GBP Canadian dollar, looks like we've already had our bounce off of this daily horizontal level. Still not convincing enough that we're actually going to make an impulsive move towards the upside. I'm still going to be waiting for a break and retest of this significant horizontal level before looking for potential downside movement. So I hope you got some educational value from this video. And if you haven't already, make sure to check out my premium membership. It gives you daily live trading sessions every single day where we go over where I'm looking to take positions in the market. You get 2 hourly long sessions per month just going over how it could help you in your trading journey. My own trading ideas, a live trading journal just like this one that I went over, where I track all of my trades that I call up in my premium community, and it gives you a better idea of how you could mark up your own trading journal. And you get 4 highly comprehensive PDFs going over everything that you need to know in your trading journey. This is Mike from CapitalHillFX. I hope you learned something from this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Cheers.